and welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Bud Elliott. I'm Chip Patterson, coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 Tailgate, where they have been rocking and rolling since, goodness gracious, just all night long. I mean, I love y'all so much. I appreciate y'all coming to hang out because we've got clearly a ton to get into. We have notes, takeaways, thoughts on Georgia's statement win in Austin, what it means for the Longhorns moving forward, what we learned about the Longhorns in that result. We have a celebration, the Illinois Fighting Illini heading your way, 21-7 winners against Michigan in the big time on CBS. To my right, Iowa State has just survived a dandy of a game against UCF. We've got bad losses for USC, bad losses for Oklahoma. Army and Navy keep kicking ass. Miami and Louisville were fantastic. Alabama blew a fourth quarter lead to a Tennessee team that had just 7 points through 44 minutes of football. Whew. Lots to get into. Tom, if it's okay, can we do like an 8 to 9 minute break before we get to Illinois?
I mean, if you guys want to talk about games that didn't matter, sure.
Okay. No, whoa. No. You marched that all the way out of here. Okay. You had a good day. We've had a good day. Okay.
I don't mean in the playoff picture. I just mean in general because they didn't involve the Illini. That's all.
Oh, in Indiana, just absolutely. I mean, look, I
declared Indiana wagon. It was a huge day.
It was a massive, massive day. Texas. How about this? Bud, what do you attribute Texas's no-show at the start of the game?
I thought Georgia had a good plan for them, honestly.
Yeah.
They attacked some of these longer developing Texas plays. I think they made Texas, try to block it up, get the ball out quick on some of the non-screen stuff. And they were able to tackle that pretty well. I thought Georgia tackled very well on the night. Early in the game, I thought Jalen Walker played extremely well. And then later in the game, Michael Williams played well. The Texas offensive tackles, who I do think are going to be really high draft picks, like they got beat tonight. And that was a problem. Quinn Ewers, I know Tom will talk about it more in a second, but it didn't look real comfortable all night. Not that a lot of quarterbacks would, I don't think. But Georgia getting to them before some of those like long developing plays was one of the keys that I saw.
Yeah, I thought the entire game was just the tone was set by the Georgia defensive line. Like they dominated from the start. They were whipping that Texas offensive line's butt early. They were getting pressure on Ewers. Ewers has never been somebody who, it's when he's moving, when he's running, he's not nearly as accurate as a lot of other guys are. Like that is probably the primary weakness in Quinn Ewers' game. He needs to be in the pocket. He needs to just be kind of, planted and ready to go, good feet and just nice solid base and throw. When you get him out of that, he's not nearly as effective, especially now because whatever the injury was, the oblique, the abdominal, you feel like those off-platform throws that you have to make when you're running and moving out of the pocket, he doesn't look very comfortable throwing them. And you saw a lot of the times when he would be rolling out and throwing, the throws were short, like not by a yard, by like 5 to 6 yards. And Georgia really heated him up. They were killing that offensive line. They finished with 10 tackles for loss and 7 sacks on the evening. And the thing is, too, like even when Texas went to Arch Manning, who was much more mobile, Arch had a couple of runs where he got out and took off. Like he had the one long 21-yard run. But he still finished with -1 yard rushing because he was getting pressured in the pocket and getting taken down with really nowhere to go. Georgia's defensive line won this game. The big matchup going in was, we talked about the Georgia defensive line versus the Texas offensive line, a bunch of NFL players on both sides. Who is going to win? Georgia's won. Georgia's won by a whole hell of a lot. The Bulldogs went on the road and doubled up Texas on a night that Carson Beck was 23 of 41 for 175 yards and 3 interceptions.
2, 3, yeah. 2 of them in the first half.
Yeah. Their defense, that was Georgia football. That was like classic. Their defense won them a game, period.
Is Georgia still going to be number 15 in your rankings? We got to run the numbers later.
I don't know. They'll be moving up because teams ahead of them lost, and that's what matters more than anything. But they'll be moving up. I can't predict what the ratings are going to do. I know Texas won't be at number 1 anymore.
Was Texas really 1 of 5 on 4th down?
Yeah.
Okay, into the game, into the half.
There was one at the end of the half. There was a few times. I mean, since they were in the hole early. So you know how Sark is. Sark's not going to be conservative once you're in trouble. He's not going to sit there and try to play the field position game. So yeah, they went for it a lot, and it did not work.
I just in the moment, like, it didn't occur to me that they were, like, missing that many 4th downs.
Well,
it
didn't
2
seem
for 14 on 3rd. Like, they
I was going to say they were
right. Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just from the jump, and that's the thing that's so impressive. It's just I think Shu got a good plan for us. Like Kirby shouting out Glenn Schumann, like to your point, Bud, about the preparation, about the way that they came in, they found something. They came in with a little bit of an edge to them. Georgia is not going to feel remarkably better about its offense coming out of this game because Carson Beck had 3 interceptions. He also had a lot of bad passes throws that were off the mark. Yeah, bad throws that were just off the mark. Heavy dose of ETN early. Thought he was running really, really hard in sort of the opening frames of that game. You've still got guys like, Bell and Smith that are you run those little easy throw routes, and then they're athletic enough that if they can make one guy miss, they can go and get you that first down. They can go move the sticks along the way. It is a Georgia team that it's a top 5 team, but they do need to play complementary football in order to win. It's just that today, Georgia's defensive front was the best unit on the field for either of these teams.
In building the 17-0 lead, they got up 132-15 in total yards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 15.
That was wild. Okay.
What do you guys think of like the decision to bench Ewers and then go back to him?
I don't mind it because you gave it a shot, and best thing Arch did was just run.
It's like you kind of had the moment of clarity, or it's like, well, nope, it's not Quinn, so might as well throw him back out there.
You mean it's not Arch?
No, like Quinn's not the reason we're getting killed right now because Arch isn't doing any better.
Yeah. I mean, or Arch. I don't know if it's not Quinn. I think it's like, well, Arch isn't the answer.
It just felt Spurrier-ish to me.
Maybe
like seeing, hey, maybe one of these guys can get hot. I can get the hot hand going, and we'll try to figure something else out. Like that's one thing I like about Sark. I think he's a good play caller, but I also think he's not going to sit on his hands. Like he's going to try stuff to see if it works when things aren't working.
Like that's not really a criticism of Sark. It's just right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm going to try something. I agree with you on that, Tom. I think that makes a lot of sense. Arch comes in. Ewers throws the ball into that trap corner like early. I thought that was really killer for them when they had momentum to move after the first pick that they got off Beck. I mean, Texas was just not as like they were not affecting Georgia's O-line like Georgia's D-line was affecting the Texas O-line. Like I think Tom said it. Like that's really what it came down to. Bond kind of had some stuff going for a little bit, and then he didn't play like the final 4 or 5 drives. I assume he got hurt again or just re-aggravated the injury, so that's a problem. We'll see.
How do you look at Texas moving forward? What's the adjustment? How does the note card change? Because we are sitting here, phrases similar to, I don't know if there's a great team in college football, but it might be Texas. Texas looks like the most well-rounded team in the country. And this is college football, which is one of the great joys. We get to change our opinions with new data, and it is always a small sample size. So now as we adjust, because we've seen Texas play the most difficult competition that the Longhorns have played so far this year, what's the adjustment with who Texas is and how they are going to play against the best teams in the country?
Don't play Georgia. No. I mean, kind of along to your point there, Texas did look like the most complete team in the country to me going into tonight. But I think the other thing we've talked about is there is no team without flaws.
Right.
And you saw Texas's flaws tonight because I don't know if he's not 100% or what, but that was not the Quinn Ewers we had seen early in the year before he got hurt. And he certainly, I mean, obviously having a defensive lineman in your face or on your ass after 2 seconds at, by the time you're in the third step of your drop repeatedly is not going to make anybody look good. It's just, he seemed rattled. It seemed like they were the road team. Like the way that offense was playing and how rattled they looked, especially in the first half, it felt like they were on the road in an environment that they weren't quite prepared to handle yet. So that was very strange to me. But I just think that they got the crap beat out of them. I don't know if there really needs to be an adjustment to be made. I think tonight Georgia was just a much better football team on defense, at least. And that was enough to win the game because you look at Georgia, we talked about it. Like the defense was great. The offense was still bad. Like you're coming out of this, you're thrilled you got this win. You needed this win. It's huge for you in the SEC. It's huge for your playoff resume if you're looking down the road there. But you did not play well. You shouldn't come out of this thinking you're elite.
So a couple things. One, I feel like Georgia did not really care about Texas run game at all. And that's maybe like going back to the fact Texas had those backs who were injured, but like it just didn't. Do you feel like Georgia respected the Texas run game? Maybe
No.
sticking with that a little bit more, be able to move people off the ball a little more, maybe could have helped some. I also think that if you play this again come the playoff, if you have a healthy Isaiah Bond, like to me, that could be a difference maker for you. I don't know that it would, but it could. Like, I don't feel like any of the Texas receivers tonight were really all that scary, to a Georgia secondary that has been at times vulnerable this year. So those two things maybe could help Texas. I don't know, like maybe you go to Arch.
I mean, Cedric, if you're going to play that game, Cedric Baxter would have made a difference.
Sure, right? Yeah, but Cedric, like he's not coming back, whereas Bond, like we assume, could get back to full health.
Okay, let's have the conversation. So the biggest thing that we should take away from college football, maybe not even in week 8, but maybe in the entire month of October, is that if you don't like a call, just throw bottles on the field. Okay, I'm going to call this the toddler tantrum theory, that if you don't like what's happening, just kick and scream and throw things. And who knows, maybe the stoppage of play will lead the officials to reviewing the call and changing their mind. What in the world do you make of that sequence?
It's very strange in that we have seen this repeatedly this year, where referees, whether they're allowed to via replay rules or not, are getting together on calls that they realize they got wrong and changing them, which I think in the grand scheme of things is the right thing to do. The timing of it tonight was horrible because you can argue that Texas fans throwing those bottles on the field and delaying the game is what gave the refs time to get together to make that choice. So whether it was like, oh my God, these people are going to kill us and they were scared, if that played a role into it or not, I don't know. It doesn't matter. All that matters is you delayed the game long enough to give these refs second thoughts. And for somebody to come in and say, hey, guys, I think we blew this one. If you've looked at the replays on the scoreboard up there, we've really messed this one up. So let's just change it. So, yeah, I think that boosters will be sitting outside of student sections with cases of water, handing them out before every home game for the rest of the season, ready to fire at will.
Do we really think if it had not been delayed that it would not be overturned? I don't know. I'm not questioning it. Like it's very possible that the delay had a big impact on the overturn. But like are we sure?
I do, because if there's no review, because you can't review it,
right?
You got to go to the next play. The 40-second clock is running. Like you've got to snap the ball. So they're not sitting. The refs aren't then looking at the video board. They're just they're checking what they're supposed to do pre-snap every single play, making sure the substitutions are getting in, the play clock's running, this guy's in the right position, blah, 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 whatever the hell everything they do pre-snap is. They're not looking at the giant $4 billion scoreboard Texas has.
Well, Tom, I'm sure they weren't really doing that, right? Like I'm sure they were just, conferencing with each other and yeah.
That's why you buy that big ass video board,
Right.
so the refs can see they screwed up and save you. Although it didn't matter in the end, which is probably for the best, because if Texas comes back to win this game after that happens, oh my God, it would have been great for us. Yeah. But just for the sport in general, it would have been a problem.
Who's the guy that was like allegedly offsides on some kind of punt play a long time ago for Bama against Georgia? And like Georgia fans still bring this up in our mentions sometimes. Like that would have been basically the thing there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any other lingering thoughts here? We got, we got to keep motoring. But
who's the next test for Texas, you think, on this schedule?
Oh, good call. Let's see.
I mean, at Vandy obviously is a test of like,
they'll lose next week.
Because look, they already beat Bama, right?
Tyler Simmons, for those of you who are listening at home.
There we go. Sure. See, Georgia fans in the chat, I'm sure.
Vandy is undefeated at home in that game as at First Bank Stadium next week. Texas,
and you host the Gators. You're at Arkansas. You host Kentucky.
Texas
when
A&M.
are we gonna know? We may know in the negative on Georgia, or sorry, on Texas. Like we may know in the negative on Texas coming up fairly soon. Like if they drop one of those games, but we may not know in the positive until they actually play at Texas A&M, right? Because I don't know that beating those 4 upcoming teams tells me that this team is the number 1 team. So far this year, they had looked like it to me, but again, the schedule was weak. We talked about that a lot this week. If A&M keeps playing well or just keeps winning, and you go there and you have a decisive win, like, do we have to wait till Thanksgiving to know? Like, we might. This schedule really is a pretty nice draw within the SEC.
It's nice to be in the SEC and not have to play anybody.
Yeah, this is true.
And
18-team leagues, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And to think, with everything going into that game, Thanksgiving weekend, I don't know what I can take out of it. Remember how we've joked about that? Like, I think maybe, I don't know. I don't think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago. Definitely not last year, actually. But I was like, I don't know if we'd be able to handle Texas and Texas A&M playing with like real stakes.
Well,
the college football world might not be like quite ready for it. Like I think the what's the Richter scale? Like whatever the vibes version of the Richter scale is, like that Texas A&M game at the end of the season is going to be stupid.
Yeah.
Like whatever we've gotten used to in terms of Egg Bowl dumb, like it won't be as awesome as that or as hilarious, but there will be things that will be uncharacteristic from both of those teams in ways both good and bad. Is my
the Republic of Texas could be torn asunder.
Listen. So does this never mind, I'm not gonna. Does this count for the American politician who's got a losing record when he shows up for events? Like, was he in the house? Does he count for this one?
He had plenty of ads.
Was he there?
I don't know if he was there. I don't know if he was there, but yeah. So again, huge win for Georgia. I like the way you put it, Tom. A classic Georgia win, and they go and they get it done, and they keep they now have a head-to-head advantage against Texas, which, given Texas's remaining schedules we've detailed here, could be huge. And given the fact that Alabama took another loss in conference play, could also be very huge. So a lot to piece apart there. Coming up on the other side, oh yeah, we had some nice sweaters. We had a flapper costume. We had one hell of a win for the Fighting Illini. Getting into Illinois' win against Michigan. Getting into Tennessee lighting up them cigars against Alabama. And so much more from Week 8. Next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, and oh boy, I hope millions, I know millions of people watch the game, but I hope millions of people were tuned in on Paramount Plus, on CBS Sports HQ, to see the most unbiased capital J journalist that I know get welcomed on to the star-studded desk in a totally unbiased blue and orange scarf, a totally unbiased Illinois hoodie, and a hat with an eye that did not stand for anything other than Illinois. But he correctly predicted the winner. Jokes aside, Tom, I think the way the game went had to feel the best because it was pretty clear. It was pretty clear Michigan didn't have it.
First of all, is it bias if every single word you say is true?
You said
Because
a million.
I said on the
You said a
pregame,
million and it was 14.
everything I said on the pregame show, everything I said on the halftime show was true, and it's exactly what happened. I said on the show on Tuesday, yeah, I got a little carried away with Illinois by a billion. But I also said it was disrespectful for Michigan to be favored because Illinois has been the better team all year. And that was very evident on the field today. Illinois was a better football team than Michigan and has been a better football team than Michigan. In fact, well, I cannot pretend I am not thrilled with the result because this was a huge kind of game for the program. I'm not thrilled with the way Illinois played because they only won by 14 and they should have beat the hell out of them because they were far better than they were and they should have won by a lot more than 2 scores. Luke Altmaier had some big plays, but he didn't play well overall. The receivers were having trouble getting open. There were turnovers. There were mistakes. It was just not they didn't play great. Defensively, I thought they had problems too, giving up the run, especially when you're just letting them. But anyways, they won. And just for the program-wise, I mean, they obviously it's big. They're 6-1. They get to a bowl game. The stat or the trend that it's their first win over a ranked team at home as a ranked team since 1991 is thank God that streak is finally over because that's a long freaking time. But just for the game to be the CBS Big Ten game of the week, to have all the production that goes into it, to have the sellout, to have all the recruits that Illinois was hosting there this weekend, and to beat the defending national champions, even if they are nothing like the team that won the national title last year, is just a good program win. So I'm thrilled with the result. Michigan stinks. Michigan should not have been ranked. Michigan is a bad football team, and that was an awful, awful performance by them. And I don't know what they were doing because it was obvious the entire game that Illinois had no respect for their passing game.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like the margin was always small, but I never at any point was considering the idea that Michigan was going to march down the field against this Illinois defense.
Yeah, and late in the game when they were down multiple scores in the fourth quarter, I get dropping back to throw. But in the first 3 quarters, when you were still very much in this game, the best drive that Michigan had, they just handed off to Kalel Mullings over and over again. Even as Illinois was not respecting your receivers, not respecting your tight end, not respecting your quarterback, and just loading it and telling you, okay, go ahead, run the ball on us all day, you were still getting yards on the ground. You were still able to move the ball. Why they kept abandoning that, you'll have to ask them because every time they did, it played right into Illinois' hands. So shout out to the Wolverines for some terrible decision-making. Their defense played well. If I'm the Michigan defense, I'm not happy with how things went because I feel like even with Will Johnson not in there most of the game, I feel like I did my job today. And my offense did nothing for me. But, oh well, Illinois 6-1.
Illinois just beat Michigan going 9 of 19 for 80 yards through the air. That's crazy.
Although it would have been better if Michigan's defensive backs weren't tackling the receivers repeatedly.
Yeah, there was some of that. Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, congrats to Tom. That is fantastic. I'm like, I want to talk more about Illinois, but also like, damn, you're right. Like Michigan just looked bad. They're getting worse.
I told y'all they've got an identity crisis. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they do well. And look, it's not getting any better. Will Johnson left this game with an injury.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I'm not going to I'm not going to allege like a total bottom falling out, but I looked ahead at the schedule. I mean, how about this? Let's do it. Is Michigan bowling?
Probably.
I think I'm on probably, but
they need
Back
two,
to
right?
discussion. Yeah. I mean, they've got 4 wins. They still get to play Michigan State, although we'll get to it later, I'm sure. Michigan State looked pretty damn okay today. They have no prayer against Oregon. They likely have no prayer against Indiana. They can beat Northwestern. So it's going to come down. If they lose Michigan State next week, they're not going bowling.
yeah, I was going to say it's getting my buddy Joe Ovius always likes to say it's getting late early. It is getting late early for the Michigan Wolverines, which, whoa.
Wild.
Yeah. I mean, Bud, you were saying you want to talk about Illinois, but you're also considering about what's ahead about Michigan. Do you have an antidote? Do you see anything that is like feasible here? Because the passing game is not just a quarterback issue. And they have started 3 different quarterbacks, and we have not had a passing game that has been respectable. The best passing plays, I don't have the box score pulled up, but it was just, Colson Loveland has an NFL body. We're going to give him the ball and hopefully he can keep a drive alive. Like that, let's see, here we go. Colson Loveland, 7 catches for 83 yards. He had 10 targets. Nobody else had more than 6 targets. Like
the receivers had 11 targets for 62 yards. That's not going to work. Like that.
And one of those was like 14 yards because it was a 3rd and 13 where Illinois rushed 3. And then after 6 seconds, Samaj Morgan finally got open over the middle. And he hit him and he picked up the first down. But even then, that's the problem with these Michigan receivers. They take forever to get open because they're just not that good.
And also, like, how much of that came in? I'm not going to say the fourth quarter was entirely garbage time, but like it was pretty clear based on the pace with which these teams. Yeah, I mean, like it was worse when the game was truly imbalanced and played in more of like a competitive game state. You know?
Yeah, I mean, Illinois in the fourth quarter was definitely just kind of playing off and letting them run clock because there were no big plays.
Yeah.
I do have, and we will get to tomorrow's top 25 a little bit later on in the show. I do have Illinois making a notable move up in the rankings.
Top 10.
Let's go.
Michigan, as you might expect, falling out of the rankings. We'll get to
that. Are we sure they're going to move Michigan out finally? They've been pretty damn stingy about it despite all evidence all season long.
No, I'll give you a tease. My debate here was whether Vanderbilt, which struggled at the beginning with Ball State, but was the 26th team in the voting last week, showing up on more than half the ballots as high as number 17, or Colorado, which also has a 5-2 record and just went to Arizona and won. That was kind of the debate I was going with. We'll get into the answers to that debate a little bit later on. 2 teams that will both be in the top 25 when the new AP poll releases, but not in the same places exactly, are Tennessee and Alabama. Ooh. How do we... First of all, I don't think Tennessee won this game. I think they just lost less. Is that fair?
What's the Wire quote? And either side wins, one side just loses more slowly.
I mean, I was on CBS Sports HQ with Chris Williamson, our friend Richard Johnson, and I went like, yeah, the Tennessee was the crab that just got like a little bit higher in the bucket when it was time to like get out. These 2 teams just kept pulling each other down.
Survival of the fittest.
Survival of the fittest. Congratulations to the Vols. Like I've got criticisms for both teams on my notepad right now. You know, and here's the sunny side, because I want to congratulate the Tennessee fans because look, you beat Alabama at home for the 2nd time in a row. There were so many losses to Alabama in Neyland. Hey, there we go.
For Jordan.
Did you actually Instacart a cigar?
No, I had it in my office.
I do. By the way, so our listeners and viewers know, shout out to Bud for attempting to Instacart a cigar to my house. That's dedication to the show.
Illinois does not allow that.
No.
Well, I I didn't get a chance to chime in, but my thought on the issue was, again, I don't know if Tennessee, this is cigar worthy on my part.
That's fair.
Like, again, so if there's anything to take away, not if there's anything, there's lots of things to take away that are positive, but Tennessee has, since the Oklahoma game, been stuck in these just like absolute dogfights. And they've won more of them than they have lost. So if there's something that I'm taking away that's a positive, it is vibesy, and it is the resilience of a group that's like, okay, you know what? Even if our $11 million quarterback is overthrowing receivers, and even if we're committing some penalties, and even if we are like, not capitalizing on high leverage opportunities, we've got a great defensive front and we can run the daggum football. And if we can do that enough and get just enough plays, well, then we'll put ourselves in a good position to win. So that's the best thing I've got for Tennessee is because it was 44 minutes of game time. They had 7 points.
Mm-hmm. They did have guys open pretty consistently throughout this game. And like Nico had missed them. They had like one drop, I think. And that, if you were a Vols fan, you're like, okay, what's more likely, that we're going to continue to miss every single open receiver all game, or that Bama's going to all of a sudden start covering these guys? And I think the answer was like, okay, Bama's not going to cover these guys very well. Like the 408 is probably like the least possible number of yards that Tennessee could have gained in this ball game based on how it played out. Like, because Nico like missed some guys. They had some kind of like discombobulated, disjointed stuff. Obviously, they had Nico go out for a play, and the backup comes in and throws like a hero ball interception, which was probably not necessary in hindsight. But like most of the teams who have played Alabama this year, Tennessee had guys open consistently. Bama does not really cover guys very well this year. And what was weird is like, instead of hitting the wide open guys, Nico scrambled around and made some awesome throws, like in tight window throws and like dropping in a bucket. It was like, okay, that's encouraging. If you can get the simple stuff fixed, like just the hit the wide open guy, maybe you're okay there. Also, if your defense holds Alabama to 314 yards on 79 plays, you're going to have a lot of cracks at this thing, man. And they did. Like, they just kept getting the ball back because Bama, they weren't hitting the huge explosives for the most part. I mean, what was their long pass play of the day is 28 or 28 or 26? 28. Like, I mean, that's pretty insane, right? I don't know.
So 18 targets for Ryan Williams. He has 8 catches on the day. Like,
Jalen Milroe played bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of felt like they were just trying to keep hitting the easy buttons.
I don't want to turn this into like a debate, but I do think it's an interesting question, because we come into the season with a whole lot of questions about quarterback in college football this year. But the consensus was, when you look at the SEC, far fewer questions about quarterbacks in the SEC than anywhere else. Except you look at tonight, Texas and Georgia, 3 different great quarterbacks played in that game. None of them played well. You go to Alabama, Tennessee, Nico and Jalen, neither of them play well. The story of the day in the SEC was the defenses. You look earlier, Ole Miss loses to Kentucky. Alabama loses to Vanderbilt. Now go back a week and watch Oregon and Ohio State. Who are the 2 best teams in the country based on what you're seeing on the field the last few weeks? These teams that are getting into rock fights and can barely beat each other, they're the last crab just crawling to the top of the bucket to escape, or the 2 teams who played a great game and one just ran out of time at the end? That, to me, is the thing to take away from what we have seen the last couple weeks.
Give me Diego Pavia, first team all SEC quarterback.
Give me Garrett Nussmeier.
But yeah,
we'll talk about him in a minute. But,
yeah.
I thought he played pretty damn well. So Tennessee just took away Milroe's legs a lot in this game. Like it was a real concerted effort. Hey, what can you do if we're going to take away your legs? And Danny talked about this, and I think we chatted about it on the Wednesday show on Big A Breakdown. Like, he has taken a lot of hits recently. They have had to kind of hit that easy button of run Milrow in games in which they probably should not have had to. The South Carolina game, the Vanderbilt game. And I do wonder if they're just kind of like taking a little bit of a toll on him. Like guys wear down. It's hard. I think it's hard mentally on any quarterback, not just Jalen, but to make all the decisions all the time on the RPO stuff, and then also have to be the runner. Like that's a pretty big mental and physical load to carry. And I don't really know if anybody out there can do that consistently. And certainly tonight, not him.
Shout out to the SEC homers in the chat who are upset with me saying, what's Ohio State's best win? What's Texas's? It's ULM.
Nobody's played anybody, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I know. I don't care who you're playing. How are you playing? You're playing like crap. That's how you're playing right now.
Well, Texas hasn't been playing like crap.
They played like crap tonight.
But
It's the best team they've seen all season, and they looked like crap against them, Chip. Ohio State didn't look like crap against them.
I did not step into the argument you presented. I'm just not going to be out here. I'm not going to be out here ignoring everything that we've seen, because sometimes, you know what happens? Sometimes the Georgia Bulldogs wake up damn angry. When the Georgia Bulldogs wake up damn angry and decide that they're going to come and bring that mean, you know what they've got? They've got dudes that are bigger and stronger and faster than almost everybody in the whole country. That the math of we're just going to recruit monsters is the hope that, look, if these monsters decide to all buy into the game plan and all follow their assignments, if this other opponent doesn't bring it, we're going to just squeeze the life out of them.
So, you know what game just got a lot bigger than I think we probably thought about it preseason, especially after week 1? Bama at LSU. Remember night?
Oh, yeah.
Because LSU is going to have a shot to probably knock Alabama out the playoff.
Yes.
Or, and also like that is very potentially a playoff elimination game.
I don't know. I'm not going to have that conversation until we get a little bit deeper into it. But in terms of but I don't know if you've heard this, and a lot of people don't talk about it. But the thing about a 12-team playoff is that you have to put 12 teams in the playoff. And they're not measured against what you think a playoff team should look like. They're only measured against each other. And so if teams continue to take losses and they continue to beat each other up and loss counts increase, then all of a sudden your little playoff elimination game ain't a real elimination game. The thing about a 12-team playoff is that there's 7 at-large bids. We used to have 4 teams in the playoff. We've got damn near double that, just like handing them out as freebies.
And you got to think 4 of them are already claimed by Indiana, Army, Navy,
Iowa
State.
I am not ready to say playoff elimination game until we get a little bit deeper into the season, because our idea of what a playoff team is not real, because we've never had a 12-team playoff before. So
that's fair.
Alabama's got this next week. Wait, not this next week off. What's this next one?
Bama has Missouri.
And then they're off. Missouri, and then they're off. That's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They need that so badly before that LSU game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they lose to Missouri, they're done.
They're not losing to Missouri.
All right. Print it. Put it in the promo, Mizzou.
They could lose to Missouri. I mean, like they're not so awesome that it's just a foregone conclusion. What's that spread? That spread's not going to be 20.
No.
Like Bama's not playing like a 30, and I mean, you don't think that maybe Missouri could find ways to scheme open guys against this secondary? I mean,
I don't.
It's possible. Like I don't think it's likely, but it's certainly possible.
Yeah, Alabama at its best is very good, but when it's not at its best, it's pretty average-ish.
The floor is a little bit lower than normal.
Yeah.
I mean, first time since 2007, they have 2 losses before November.
They needed Brady
Cook. What happened
in
2007, by the way?
They needed Brady Cook to be Willis Reed to be able to come out and beat Auburn.
Brady Cook.
You know, like
Yeah.
that
Busting
man,
out of the hospital to get back to the
he
stadium.
went to the hospital and came back. And that's what it took to beat Auburn. And you're going to pick that team to beat Alabama?
Auburn had a team's opposing QB in the hospital and still couldn't win the damn game.
That's also an underrated storyline.
Like, you put that guy in the hospital and he came back and beat you.
We haven't even gotten to the super angry fan bases, but Auburn, yeah, the Auburn experiment's not great right now. All right, let's do. Oh wait, man, we're deep. Okay, coming up on the other side, there's a team in the ACC that's still undefeated that would like a word. If we're gonna have a top 5, top 10 shakeup, could we get a little bit of attention? We'll let you know with Miami and Indiana. Come on, you'll have your moment too. All that and more next.
A Quiet Place Day 1 is now streaming on Paramount Plus. It's thrilling, terrifying. It will make your heart pound out of your chest. A Quiet Place Day 1, now streaming.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. We want to do Indiana. We want to do Miami. What would you get the most? I got a lot of both.
Let's play to the brands and let's play to the chip on the shoulder, and let's go with Miami first.
Okay. Wait, hold on. Play to the chip on the shoulder, like play to the Indiana fans.
Yeah.
And make them wait more.
Yeah, just make them wait a little longer. We'll go to the big dogs.
Okay. Is Miami 2023 Washington? Is Miami 2022 TCU? Or is Miami 2023 LSU and bound to trip up in one of their tougher games that they've got left this season?
I said on HQ this morning, I went with Washington. I'm going to stick with it because what are the tougher games left on this schedule? Like, at least Washington had to beat Oregon twice.
So Syracuse,
Florida State, obviously.
So Syracuse potentially could score. I mean, if Cal can score with Miami, Syracuse potentially could score with Miami.
I mean, I guess like it's after Thanksgiving, maybe they had a little too much. I mean, well, you know what? Honestly, what am I talking about? Miami's had to, fight to get past Virginia Tech, Cal, Louisville. There's nobody in the country who they can't play a close game against. It's
Georgia. So I had Georgia when I was writing about this earlier. I said Georgia Tech and Syracuse. Those are two teams that, I mean, if Haynes King is back,
If King, yeah.
But
well, hey, maybe Duke. We disrespecting 6-1 Duke once again.
Washington is probably the right answer there. I was actually pretty impressed with Miami in that they just kept fighting back. Like you would thought, like you would think, okay, Louisville's thrown that punch, like that's a great counter punch. Now they're going to seize momentum, and Miami was like, no, we're just going to go down and score again. I thought Miami's O-line played really well today. Like when they needed it, they pushed Louisville around and ran for first downs. I mean, Shuck didn't play poorly. Like he wasn't amazing, but I mean, 342 and a couple scores, like not awful. Now you might say, hey, Miami's defense has some real issues, and I think against the better teams, I would agree with that. I am probably one more week away from moving Clemson over Miami in my playoff projection, right? Because who would you favor in Charlotte? I kind of think I would favor Clemson, but I'm not sure on that. I still have Miami right now.
all right. Well, who would you favor and who would you pick is different because I've been picking Clemson as my ACC champion for about 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, they're kind of the same thing though, right? Like, I mean, who do you think should be favored in the game? Is basically like who would you pick?
I have more confidence in Clemson right now because of the way it's playing compared to the way that Miami is playing, because Miami's playing down to teams a lot.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I also can't shake what Clemson looked like against Georgia. So I think I want to go with Clemson, but I don't know if I'm right in doing so, just to be honest.
Things that I really liked about Miami's performance here against Louisville, which, by the way, I had not really taken into consideration at the beginning of the season that, I was like, oh, of course the schedule is going to get harder. Last year, Louisville, the whole bet was schedule super easy. And they take advantage. They make it to the ACC championship game, finish as the runner-up. And the schedule got a little bit shaken up with the addition of the new teams. So they didn't have like all of the hard stuff that they thought they were going to have before the addition of Stanford, Cal, and SMU. But man, like Louisville has taken a couple of conference losses. They are already 2-2 in conference play. They still have to play Clemson. They still have to play Pitt. Like, tough go, Vic, for the Cardinals. And I mean, you've already gone out and you've already lost close to SMU. You've lost close to Notre Dame. You've lost close to Miami. I feel like this Cards team is battling. I feel like they did a lot of really good things in this game. To your point, Bud, like you're not Tyler Shuck, I didn't think it was awesome. They made some bad mistakes, but also kind of made up for it, like with the Colin Lacey kickoff return. So if you're going to try to play your damn Bud and his buzzwords, luck box has been in my head for 2 weeks. Like if you want to play the luck box game, like check. Like they had a little bit of columns on both sides on this, but the story to me is just Cam Ward as a singular star who seems to, in these moments, in these super tight games, seems to inject a little bit of like confidence and a little bit of just sort of like overall, like I've got control of this situation. We are going to go down the field and score. We are going to win this game. Those kinds of singular stars, that is the Michael Penix from Washington from last year, where with your experience, with what you were able to do with the ball in your hand, like that's how you go and win these games. So I mean, I see Miami winning every game that's left on the schedule. They could get tripped up, but I wouldn't pick it.
I mean, right now, based on what we're seeing from quarterbacks all across the country, you need somebody to make a play for you. Who's the one quarterback right now you're confident in?
The one
Cam
who's
Ward.
leading the number one offense in total offense and scoring and everything else, who just like the dude just like he will make that mistake, but he's also going to go get you 3 to 4 touchdowns.
I mean, him, Shador, Nuss, there's kind of a handful, I think, who are playing really well.
Yeah, but like he's just got that kind of it factor going right now where, like, I think if you look at the odds books right now, Georgia's the favorite to win the national title. And I get it because they've played 3 really tough games and they've won 2 of them. But just based on how the quarterback situation is, even if I don't feel like Miami's the best team, I feel like when you get into a sticky spot, he's the one guy I look at and say, okay, I trust him to be able to get me out of it. So it's like I feel like that gives them something of an edge. So that's why I kind of look at them as the Washington of last year, because none of us thought Washington was the best team in the country.
God, we picked against them
both the Oregon games.
Yeah.
And by the way, the irony of last year, Washington fans being mad at us for leaving Oregon ahead of them in power ratings, even after Washington beat them. And now this year, Oregon fans being mad that Ohio State's still ahead of them in power ratings. But anyways, I'm getting off track. The only point I want to make was I think that in a season like this, where we don't truly have the elite, crazy, incredible, unbeatable behemoth of a team, the team with the quarterback that has capital I it might be the one to look at.
I think that's fair.
Tough road ahead for Louisville, who's a bowl team, but probably not a player in the ACC title race after losing this one. They fall again, you've got 5-0 Clemson. Clemson, by the way, 2 of their final 3 opponents in conference play are teams that went to 1 score with Miami. They still have to play Louisville. They still have to play Virginia Tech, and then they have to play Pitt. Has Pitt ever beat Clemson before?
Not that I can
really remember.
Not that I can remember. Definitely not in 2016 and 2021. They definitely don't have only a 2-2 record against the Clemson Tigers as an ACC member. Pat Narduzzi, famous line. I don't know what y'all are complaining about. Just go beat Clemson. His comment, by the way, when on divisional alignment before the divisions got blown up and everyone was complaining about being stuck in the Atlantic Division. Yeah, just go beat Clemson. Well, come on, we did it. What's the big deal? So we'll see how the tie. Oh yeah, and then Clemson. Any thoughts here?
Didn't watch a second of this.
Yeah, I didn't. I figured you'd be the one with your Clemson first half play who'd be able to tell us what happened in this game.
So the main thought here for me is probably just a lot. It's like mostly Cade Klubnik centric, just like kind of a continuation of what's been some really, really good play. You line it up with how never in his career as a starter, which by the way, at this point is now up to like 20 games. Like never have we had a 5-game, 6-game run like this. He's playing the best football of his career as a college player. It is the fulfillment of his 5-star projection coming out of high school. It is the fulfillment of whatever your wildest dreams thought that him and Garrett Riley could be. And, not great that Virginia was able to come out and have some late scores. It reminded me a lot of the NC State game, where it's a 7-point game at halftime. Well, not the NC State game in that way, but NC State game in terms of the late scores, making this thing look like, 48-31. Oh my gosh, was it a shootout? It's like, no, it was 17-10 at halftime. Clemson came out, laid an absolute hammer in the third quarter, score. And then you thought the game was over and Virginia just kept fighting. So, yeah, I thought Clemson played well overall. Slow start, but story for me is more about Klubnik and playing it forward. So that's it. Thumbs up.
Chip's got Clemson winning it all.
No, I've got Clemson losing in the semifinals.
Yeah, you say that publicly, but we know privately how you feel.
I've got Clemson beating Penn State in the quarterfinals and then losing in the semifinals.
I'm just happy that you have a bracket already.
I had to. You can thank Boney for that. Boney's like, hey,
what my bracket is.
He's like, hey, do you have a top 12? I was like, oh yeah, actually, we had to do it for the site. We had to put together a whole daggum, bracket. And he's like, all right, well, now we're gonna play it out, and we're gonna have Ken's play it out with the model, and then we're gonna compare. And I was like, whoa. Catch me dizzy on CBS Sports HQ at 3 p.m. on a Thursday. No idea what we're talking about. It's October 18th.
I don't have a bracket.
Indiana is a monster. I don't know why.
It's a wagon.
I don't know why any of y'all doubted this. Wow. Okay. Listen, the point of the reaction pod is not to sit up here and brag about Locke's wins. So I'm not going to do it. But when I had to take on the whole damn podcast, standing up for Kurt Signetti, smoking through the filter, that man, and did you see how mad he was when assignments were being missed in the third and fourth quarter?
Listen, I don't want to throw a grenade into that locker room because the vibes are at an all-time high. And as an Illini fan, throwing a grenade in the Indiana locker room is never anything that I would want to do. I would never want to blow a wheel off this wagon. But Taven Jackson threw for twice as many touchdowns as Curtis Work today. Is there a quarterback controversy in Bloomington?
There is
the wrong guy starting?
No,
Do they need to go to Taven? Is this a Quinn Arch situation?
There is a great quarterback situation. There is not a quarterback controversy. We had a fingy issue, and it just so happens he had a fingy issue, and it just so happens that Curtis Rourke didn't have to test his fingy out like Adam Driver did for Utah because they were up. Let's see, what was it? It was by the time because he didn't come out for the second half at all, right? It was 28-7, and then Jackson goes in and they outscore him 28-0 in the second half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just blew him out in the third quarter, and it was done.
couple things that impressed me. One, just how crisp Indiana was when they came out. I mean,
Yes.
75, 10, 88, 75, 74, first 5 drives, 4 touchdowns. Okay. That'll get it
Yeah.
done. Also, like their ability to push Nebraska around, I thought was pretty good. Like their run game, they had some chunk runs there, but ultimately, like I was pretty impressed by like the consistency with which they ran the ball. Like Indiana looks really good offensively and defensively. I mean, I'm still not sure they're amazing, but damn, like they showed up again. Nebraska didn't score much, and Nebraska couldn't really move the ball. So you got to start giving Indiana some credit. I think here's where it is. Like, nice job. This is a good football team.
Yeah, like I feel I got this game so wrong, and not just in the handicapping aspect of it. It was I thought this game was going to be about whether or not Indiana's secondary with its size disadvantage would be able to hold up against the Nebraska wide receivers. What I did not consider was the opposite end of that is, can Indiana take away Nebraska's run game and force the true freshman quarterback to win on the road against an actual good team? Because, like, yeah, he beat Purdue on the road, but that wasn't a great performance by Nebraska overall, even if they won the game. And he clearly couldn't. Like, Raiola looked like terrible for the most part. Like, he hit a couple nice, pretty throws that you see him make, just like, oh boy, but he was not
he had
making
6'4" receivers and he was throwing them
At our
high.
freshman game.
You
Yeah.
know, like he was.
he had 3 interceptions. Yeah.
He was sailing them. Yeah.
Yeah, like he just did not play well. So it's like Indiana, Kurt Signetti was much smarter than me. He said, well, how about I just make the freshman beat me and see if he can? And then he won 56-7. He couldn't.
To your point about the Indiana defense, I felt like because they did not respect the run, they were able to bring extra pressure on Raiola and kind of heat him up, speed him up, get him off his mark just a little bit. The pass Ellison ran the ball really hard. There's something about the way that Indiana handles its business that is just so efficient and ruthless. And look, they've got Ohio State, they've got Michigan,
Don't mention Michigan in the same breath as Ohio State.
Well, they've got teams that at the line of scrimmage are going to be different.
The only game I'm worried about for these Hoosiers the rest of this season is Ohio State. I think they're going to beat Washington. Maybe Michigan State gives them more of a fight because, again, we'll get to it later, I'm sure. But Michigan State looked pretty okay today. Michigan's got nothing for this team. Michigan won't be able to score enough. Even if the defense slows this Hoosiers team down, Michigan won't score on them. Ohio State and then Purdue. Like this team is a legit threat to get to Indianapolis. Like, you could be looking at Oregon versus Indiana for a Big Ten title, or Ohio State versus Indiana for a Big Ten title. And if that happens, they're also a legit threat to get an at-large berth in the playoff. Like, if they finish 10-2 and their losses are Ohio State and Oregon, they're in.
No, that would be 11-2. You're talking about because they don't play Oregon in the regular season.
Sorry, if they lose the Big Ten, they're 11-2.
Oh yeah, if they show up
in.
to Indianapolis with one loss, they're in.
And that's nuts because we're talking about Indiana. And this isn't like fantasy. Hey, guys, let's be stupid for 5 minutes and pretend Iowa's got a chance. They have a chance.
So on the newsy side of this, the way that I understand it coming out of post game, they felt like Curtis Rourke could have gone back in and played. It was his thumb was bleeding. Got a lot of good Joel Klatt commentary. I'm being very earnest here. Well, he goes, it's like, well, Gus, I know it doesn't make sense, but you want to throw it hard. And what he was describing was you don't want to throw a touch pass when your thumb is like bleeding and numb. And he's like, all you want to do is you just want to put that spin on it. I was like, okay, thank you, Joel. I appreciate that. Joel played college quarterback. I did not. I haven't had to. I haven't had to throw a pass with a bleeding thumb. Okay, it's not
bleeding thumb. That's like a blues guitarist.
Hey, I have played guitar with my fingers bleeding. Damn right I have. I can still rip a solo with my fingers bleeding. I knew what he was talking about.
Can we also talk about Gus calling Curtis Rourke the kid?
Thank you. Thank you.
Curtis is what, 24?
Curtis is older
25?
than McKenzie.
He's the oldest dude on that field. He might be older than some of the GAs on Kurt Cignetti's staff. And we're out here calling him the kid?
The kid. I was like, hold on a second. Let's check his eligibility and let's check his age. And do you know what? Interestingly enough, he turns 24 on October 25th. He'll be 25 by the next game. Preposterous, but still. I mean, I guess he's new
He
to
can rent a car. He's not a kid anymore.
Do Canadians age differently?
Oh, the exchange rate.
The exchange
yeah.
rate. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. That's where we had it wrong.
Okay, so maybe in like Canada, he's 21, eh? In hockey years, he's only 19.
Oh, Roxy.
Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's 12:30 p.m. All right. Yeah, we're talking Canadian now. Yeah.
We got Jordo, Marty, Fishy, Natchy, Roxy. Hey, Roxy, yeah. Okay, let's go.
Oh yeah. Okay there. All right, we're gonna go out there. We're gonna throw the football around there.
What before we hit a break and do talk about the new rankings, how do you take the temperature of USC football right now? I mean, congrats to Maryland. I'm sure there is at least one very passionate Maryland football fan who's excited and wants to hear about the chances of a 9-3 college football playoff bound Maryland Terrapins after they are able to storm back from an early deficit and get the win against the Trojans. But there's also the other side of this. 1-4? I don't have to, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1-4 in conference play are those USC Trojans. Now, look, they took undefeated Penn State all the way to overtime. They were right there against Michigan in the Big House, but
they were right there against Minnesota, and they were right there against Maryland.
Ifs, buts, candies, nuts. Like, I mean, what do we do with Lincoln Riley, somebody who has lost a lot of games since the start of the 2023 season?
Can we give a quick shout out to Billy Edwards?
Sure.
I think he's a really good quarterback for Maryland. And their offensive line kind of sucks, and he just dodges pressure and makes plays. To Tom's point about, like, are we sure which conference has the best quarterbacks? If he's right that it may not be the SEC, if he's right that it is the Big Ten, Rourke, who we just talked about, and Billy Edwards, who we are talking about now, those guys play into it. I think he's a pretty damn good player.
He looked bad last week, but that was a hell of a bounce back performance from him. He needed that. And it's just that's just a huge win for Maryland as far as bowl eligibility and all that stuff, and just for their psyche. But as far as the USC picture is concerned, I mean, what can you do? Like, can you fire Lincoln Riley? What's your move if you do?
Miller Moss threw the ball 50 times.
Yeah, I think great.
I mean, we talked about their defense and how banged up it was and how difficult it was going to be for them to get stops. They're going to have to win shootouts now because most of their key guys are gone. But so I wasn't shocked to see Maryland have, I mean, there's a reason we bet the over. Like, we thought this was going to be a high scoring game. Thankfully, we barely got it. It's just, I don't know how to fix this. I don't think it's just Lincoln Riley, although I don't think Lincoln Riley's helping the situation. I think that this is the result of a long like a decade's worth of bad leadership as far as the football program is concerned by that school. I think that USC was far behind the curve of what the sport was becoming. I think that they hired Clay Helton, who took over a program that reached the heights that it was at because it was in a fertile place filled with tremendous talent. And he tried to turn it into like a culture development program, which then allowed a lot of other schools to come in and kind of raid all the talent in that area, where like it used to be all the best quarterbacks in California ended up at USC. Now they're at Ohio State, they're at Alabama, they're at Texas, they're at all these other schools who have come in because USC's lost its luster for the most part. The best quarterback they had is from Washington, D.C., and he was a transfer from Oklahoma. And I think that athletic department-wise, USC has been a little behind the times. And then they hire like Lynn Swann to be the athletic director, who has no idea how to do, athletics administration as you're becoming into the NIL transfer portal era. Then they bring in Mike Bowen, and it just, I don't think there's an easy fix. I think this is going to take time. And I think that they were hoping Lincoln Riley could just show up and fix it. And he can't. That is becoming painfully clear. And I don't think like firing Lincoln Riley and hiring somebody else is going to be the fix either. I think that this is going to be a process that's going to suck for a while, and you just kind of have to deal with it and hope you come out on the other side. But at least we're getting great jokes out of it, because I think it was Ralph Russo who tweeted that the Big Ten actually ended up getting Oregon and 3 Fresno states.
It does strike me that like they've only had like one.
I didn't see that.
They've only had like one like come up for air game. The game against Utah State. And that was what, week 2?
Mm-hmm.
I like Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Penn State, Maryland. Like that. That's a tough stretch. Not saying those teams are all equals, but like that's a tough stretch.
Yeah, but UCLA went to Rutgers and won, and USC couldn't go to Minnesota and win.
Yeah, but I think Rutgers, with everybody they have missing, is way worse than Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I
agreed.
Yeah. And you know what? They get Rutgers next week, so we will see.
What about Oklahoma getting pantsed at home by South Carolina?
I didn't see that one coming.
Oklahoma, yeah. I'm not shocked that they lost. I'm shocked in the fashion that they lost. But they got behind like the stupid mistakes early. They were behind 21-0. What, like 5 minutes into that game? And then you're asking Oklahoma with Michael Hawkins to dig themselves out of a 3-touchdown hole. Things aren't going to get better. They're only going to get worse from that point on the rest of the day. And that Oklahoma's offensive line is dog doo-doo, and it was going up against the South Carolina defensive front, and it looked every bit like dog doo-doo versus the South Carolina defensive front.
Jackson Arnold, after the game, was asked about, his
Jackson Arnold came back in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that his message to Brent Venables was that he didn't want to, burn a year, but that he was ready to go if it needed to happen. And the glass was broken because, buddy, it was an emergency. And the results were not all that dissimilar to what was happening early, based on what I could tell.
Credit to him for being willing to do it for the team. I don't know if it was the best decision for him, but I'll give him credit for being willing to do it, because there's a lot of guys who probably would have just sat on the bench like with their arms up there, be like, nah, coach, I'm good. Go check with the other guy.
Yep. Coming up on the other side, we're going to break down our expectations for the new AP Top 25 poll, plus more of our takeaways from a busy Week 8 Saturday. Next.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, taking a look at our projections for the new AP Top 25 poll, which will be released on Sunday. Trivia question. Eye on College Basketball podcast. College basketball season starting soon. They've got a little game they could trivia time. So shout out to them. When was the last time the Oregon Ducks were number 1 in the AP Top 25 poll?
2007?
2014?
Close. They never actually made it to 1 in 14, but
2012?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
In the 2012 season, the Oregon Ducks made it to number 1 for a single week.
What a week it was.
Loss dropped to number 5. The Oregon
They
Ducks
lost to Stanford?
The Oregon Ducks as a program have only been number 1 in the AP poll for 8 different poll releases. 7 of them were in the 2010 season, leading into their eventual BCS National Championship game loss to Cam Newton and the Auburn Tigers. The other one being in 2012, where interestingly enough, they actually finished ahead of Notre Dame in the final AP poll after going on to win the rest of their games and after Alabama ran past Manti Te'o's girlfriend in the BCS National Championship game that season. I think Eddie Lacy had her in a spin move. Yeah, Lene Kakua. We will always remember you. And I am projecting that Oregon will take over the number 1 spot with like a business-like short week. Yeah, I mean, there is the but it's Purdue side of it, sure. But I come out of this thinking for Oregon, like, look, that's exactly what you wanted Oregon to do on a short week after a huge emotional win against Ohio State. 35, it was like 21-0 at halftime. 35-0 is your final score. Just line them up and knock them down. It's kind of what the season that Oregon's in right now.
Yep. Show up, don't break a sweat, don't get hurt, go home. Perfect recipe. They did everything perfect.
Yeah. I've got question from the tailgate. Will they be unanimous? I don't know. There's always a stray.
No, Georgia's going to get votes for the
Yeah.
resume.
I've got Oregon at 1, Penn State at 2, Ohio State at 3. That would be Penn State and Ohio State just moving up a spot. I've got Georgia moving up to 4, Texas falling to 5. They could fall behind Miami and end up at 6, but I don't know how the AP voters are going to ultimately deal with the Longhorns, a team that they were almost unanimous in having as number 1 just 1 week ago. Whether they would fall behind the Longhorns, but whether the Longhorns would fall behind the Hurricanes, we will see. That's one of the first like debate spots, I think, in the top 5.
I feel like Georgia runs to 3 at least, just because of the Clemson and now the Texas wins.
So they jump ahead of Ohio State?
Yeah, because Ohio State does not have nearly the resume that they have as far as wins.
How far does Bama drop?
I've got Bama dropping to 15. They basically
behind Indiana and behind.
They settle ahead of Boise State.
Are they ahead of Illinois?
And Indiana jumps Boise?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
I've got BYU going up too.
I think should be in the top 10.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Indiana should be in the top 10.
Look,
they should be.
The thing about a top 10, Tom, is you can only have 10 teams in there.
Oh, don't come at me with this math again. But who are the 10? Like Oregon, Penn State, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas. There's 5. Miami is 6. That leaves 4 spots. Those 4 spots, 2 of them should be reserved for Iowa State, BYU, and then a 3rd for Indiana. So you can still put when you're
I don't think the AP voters are going to kick LSU out.
No, but they don't have to put them higher than the undefeated teams.
I'm making a projection of how the voters are going to.
How many games do these teams? I'm not yelling at you.
Yeah.
How many games do these teams need to win before you start taking them serious?
I think with every week, if you have a 0 in the loss column, you end up moving up as a matter of principle. The only sort of like twist to that might be Iowa State just because it got really hairy against UCF. But I've got like BYU moving up. I've got Indiana moving up. I've got Army moving up. I've got Navy moving up. So, yeah, I think that the undefeated teams will continue to rise every single week in the rankings, that they remain undefeated.
If Tennessee is ranked ahead of Iowa State, BYU, or Indiana, we need to riot. I want to see riots in the streets on Sunday afternoon.
Well, I mean, if Texas told us anything, just throw bottles and you can get your way.
Yeah, true. Go to the AP building in your neighborhood and throw plastic bottles at it until they vote the way they're supposed to.
In terms
there are
of
AP buildings in every neighborhood, right? Like that's how the AP works.
That's not how the AP works.
Oh, I haven't taken civics in a long time.
They don't cover the Associated Press and civics.
Maybe they should. Maybe that's what's wrong with this country.
No, they covered it in news writing, a class that I know well because I had to take it twice at North Carolina. It was too hard the first time. I was having a tough semester.
Chip just kept writing editorials. Like, well, I thought this was a column class.
In terms of the edges of the rankings, again, I think it's a Vanderbilt Colorado conversation. Vanderbilt was 26 in voting points last week. I've got them moving in. If there's a big wave, because Colorado, I mean, put a number on Arizona in Tucson. I watched not all of that game, but when I was watching, I was pretty impressed. Not that Arizona is this bastion of like consistency, but Colorado's defense kind of had
they're playing
Noah
better.
Fafita in hell for a little bit.
Yeah. The defense has been playing better for a few weeks now,
Yeah. So I was pretty impressed with that. Would not be surprised at all if Colorado ends up breaking through. I've got Missouri, even though they won, giving up a couple spots. In part, Tom, like you said, I just think Army and Navy are going to, just keep jumping up ahead of some of these teams. And then Pitt. Yeah, not a ton of adjustments, even though we still had a lot of thrills throughout the top 25. Any burning questions you got?
Outside of Michigan, who's falling out?
Just Michigan.
Yeah. All right.
And some of that is a lack of options, because in last week's rankings, some of those teams that were getting a lot of support already and showing up on a lot of ballots, like Nebraska, nope. Arizona State, nope. Oklahoma, nope. Washington State, maybe, but they just beat Hawaii. They're a one-loss team. I've got my eye on you. Iowa, nope. Texas Tech, yikes. WTF, Texas Tech.
Let me just dance on the grave. Told you they weren't good. Now, granted, when I said that, I didn't mean I think they'll lose by like 30 to Baylor, but supports my theory quite a bit, I would say.
Oh, underrated storyline that I hadn't really wrapped my mind around was Billy Napier and Dave Aranda scoring big wins today.
It did. Extend Napier, DJ Lagway with big game. It's kind of a new era for the Gators. Do you think it's time to give Napier a little extension that way he can build a program around him?
People are suggesting that for sure.
So,
yeah, I think it will be a day that the headline will be the change at number one. We will see, ultimately where Georgia lands. We will see where Texas lands, and Alabama and Tennessee will have some shuffling. But with some of the other action, a mostly calm day throughout the top rankings.
Isaac Wilson with a 71-yard touchdown pass to Money Parks. Ladies and gentlemen, Utah is finally on the board.
That is his first completion over 5 yards tonight, I believe.
Yes.
Wow. That's a good way. If you're going to break a streak, break a streak, It's pretty impressive.
Jackson and the tailgate.
Completely falling apart.
Is it surprising we haven't had a coach fired yet?
Given the way things have worked in recent seasons, yes.
Yeah.
Given the expanded college football playoff, maybe no. I heard
that could be part of it.
I heard that mentioned to me that the math of candidates and when candidates would be available has changed drastically based on the 12-team playoff, especially in terms of getting seriously down the line in those kinds of conversations.
And I think I speak for all of us here when I say that if that's what the future is, where coaches aren't going to get fired until December, so that way we don't have to throw our Sundays all up in smoke to get together to do emergency podcasts, I am fully supportive of patience. I think patience is the answer.
Trivia for you guys?
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
God, yeah.
Who are the 3 teams undefeated in Sun Belt play?
Right now, undefeated in Sun Belt play. All right, let's go. It's not JMU because
they lost today.
Lost today.
Is ULM still unbeaten?
They are.
Okay, there's one.
Hey, I'm gonna give you my hands. Georgia Southern.
Yep.
Okay, there's 2.
Cajuns.
Yep.
I'm good at trivia.
And Georgia Southern, I mean, look, I don't think they haven't played Old Dom yet, right? But they've played Marshall. They beat Marshall. They played JMU. They beat JMU. So they're going to have the tiebreaker in that Sun Belt East. Like Georgia Southern might be going to the Sun Belt Championship.
If Clay
JMU lost by 14 today?
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, like they're really good against North Carolina, but in Sun Belt play, not as much.
No. They brought. Hold on. What? There was another game where they brought their shit kicking boots.
Coastal.
Yeah.
They did crush Coastal.
They pumped Coastal, but wow, I didn't see any of that today. Wow. I'm going through the box score now. Sorry.
Yeah, we were looking at that though. Which, by the way, if Clay Helton wins a Sun Belt championship,
Southern turned the ball over 4 times and still beat them by 14.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about like knifing a USC fan, let like conference championship Saturday include watching Clay Helton win the Sun Belt championship.
Oh, back to the Oklahoma USC thing. Like those 2 fan bases are just miserable at each other right now. It's like, at least we're not looking at Riley. It's like, oh well.
Well, Bud, it's funny you use the phrase miserable because we've made it 82 minutes and no one's on the air at least brought this one up because it was suggested about 45 minutes ago that Norvell hire Lincoln Riley as his OC and Brent Venables as his DC, and that'd be the way that you fix Florida State football.
That works.
What's that?
Yeah, I
agree
with the
meme
move.
where they're holding up the bandanas together.
Excellent move. Think that is probably the way to go here. I mean, you hold Duke to 180 yards and you lose the game. That was just. I'm like so over it, and yet I'm also like pissed about it at the same time. It's a weird like.
Welcome to my life as an Illini football fan for the last 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you're telling yourself, I don't care anymore. I don't care, and then the next game comes and you lose, and you're pissed off again.
Totally. It sucks, obviously. The defense played, I thought, pretty well. I was pretty impressed with some of the throws Glenn made. And then they had like just enormous drops. Like, okay, you're not good enough to drop those passes. Like you're not going to have a lot more opportunities to catch those because you don't get open all that much.
The 2 statements that I saw that are sort of paired together are number 1, the observation that if on offensive snaps, Florida State had simply kneeled every single offensive snap, they would have won the ball game. If you take away Duke's points off turnovers,
okay,
they would have won the game 7-6 because outside of 2 field goals, all of Duke's offensive drives that ended in scores came off of Florida State turnovers, which isn't correct. I understand.
That's really fun. But I have a feeling Duke's field position would be quite a bit different if Florida State had just knelt repeatedly.
But the second part, which played into the first part, again, I don't agree with the first statement, but the second part that plays into it is that Manny Diaz knew all he had to do was wait for Florida State to mess up. That if you look at Duke's game plan, they were just like, let's keep giving Florida State's offense the ball and see how that goes. because I
That's a
think
good plan.
I think we've got a better chance of just seeing what they do against our defense than us trying to like take any risks necessarily pushing the ball down the field against Florida State's defense.
I do not disagree. Yeah, that was one they had to get, by the way. Like not for they're not going bowling anyway, but that's one I thought they kind of had to have. Like they played. Like I guess after watching it, if you'd probably pick them again, right? So I don't know.
No,
Maybe not.
hell no.
180 yards.
I don't
total
care.
offense. Okay.
I would have taken him again and just hoped that Florida State could learn how to catch.
Yeah, because even with the turnovers, if they catch like one of those bombs, maybe, but they didn't, so they lose.
Did you happen to see the AI generated photo of a Florida State wide receiver with actual bricks for hands?
No, but that is awesome. my buddy makes really cool like AI drawings on his phone, and I'm gonna have him do some fun stuff with that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I would not pick it again, having seen everything, just because I would just not pick it. I would just no, thank you. Also, because Bud Chip lock agreements are 1 and 6 now, so apparently when you and I see the board the same, it's disaster zone, bruh.
So LSU's defense is definitely better without Harold Perkins. Like we've said this a couple weeks in a row. It was like first we were kind of joking, and then we were like not really joking. Like now we're like 100%. Like they're better without Harold Perkins. He's a good athlete, but they're better. Also, Nussmeier, and I'm not just trying to hype him up so he gets drafted number 1 overall. Like that, I don't think I have that much power. 2 weeks in a row, no sacks. The way he moves in the pocket, like not that Arkansas had a ton of pressure on him, but Arkansas does have some real D linemen who can really rush the passer. Ole Miss did get a lot of pressure on him and still couldn't get him on the ground. Like I'm pretty sure his pocket presence is good.
Yeah, that was just a game for me, like because it was kind of half joking, but also true in that sense, in that it's like LSU coming off of that big win. It's like, oh God, now they're totally gonna lose to Arkansas, especially because Arkansas had beaten Tennessee. So for them to just come out and just dominate that game, even if like it was 34-10, but they dominated that game. So I think that was an impressive performance by LSU overall.
Yeah, I agree. That's
the
a good
defense has been good.
And if they keep playing good, that's a really dangerous team down the stretch.
Yep. We've
probably a playoff team, right?
They could get in that combo for sure.
They're gonna be seriously in that combo.
They've won 6 games in a row, and every week that we move forward, the loss to USC is more and more in the background. The thing that's key to me is that you couldn't react South Carolina, UCLA, South Alabama. Like you could not be like, okay, well, look, it's all good. But you beat Ole Miss in overtime, follow that up. I mean, the next challenge is at Texas A&M. And then they've got a week off, and then they play Alabama. So SEC title contention is on the line for this LSU team in the next couple of weeks. They know they've always known that they've got a dude in Nussmeier. I think it is encouraging coming out of this Arkansas game because Taylor Green was healthy. Oh, hold on. Taylor Green played. How healthy he was, we can.
Yeah,
that's between him and his doctor.
Yeah, we can leave that up for debate. But he played in the game, and still they were pretty good. I did not get. So a question: did anyone watch Notre Dame Georgia Tech? I got 0 eyes on that one.
I did.
Huge blank spot. Cool.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about it?
I mean, if only I'm asking if you have anything.
Backup quarterback for Georgia Tech was not able to move the ball on the Irish really at all. Georgia Tech's defense played hard, pretty game, and just eventually broke.
Yeah. The Benjamin Morrison injury was not evident in this game because Georgia Tech could not remind you that he wasn't there.
Yeah.
The biggest takeaways I have this game were multiple texts from different Notre Dame fans complaining about how much the ABC or whoever was broadcasting the game was talking about the playoff during the game. projecting Notre Dame's chances to get to the playoff like every 5 minutes. And my one friend was like, I don't care. I can't directly quote him. He said, I don't care about our chances to get to the playoff because we're just going to get the stuffing beat out of us once we get there.
Right.
Just let me watch us win a damn football game. Shout out to him.
All right. What else from the board?
I got a take before I get to Flowers. The take is I don't know if he looks horrible in practice, but it's time to switch to Brendan Sullivan, Kirk, because
Cade was bad. Yes.
Stinks.
Yes.
Stinks. The interception he threw tonight was legit one of the worst throws I think I have seen in years. I don't know which receiver he was throwing to because he missed both of them by 10 yards, but he did hit the safety right square in the chest. And then I will say Michigan State, huge win for them because, I mean, just needing it. But as far as their ability to get to a bowl game this year, getting this win over Iowa, I think really gives them an excellent shot to do it. I think Aiden Childs played well. I was very concerned about him in this matchup going against this defense. He looked good. He wasn't taking the stupid throws. He wasn't getting baited into it. He was taking the throws that were there. That's what he needs to do more of, and he did it tonight. So good on him. Good on the Spartans. Big win.
Were we not nice to Notre Dame in this game?
Yeah,
I admitted openly, because I don't lie about this stuff, I said I did not see any of it.
Yeah,
when I wrote about it,
Georgia Tech.
They handled business.
Yeah.
Damn
Catholics, they're so sensitive.
He can say that.
I'm Catholic.
He's Catholic. All right. Get off us.
I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. I'm Catholic. It's okay now.
My observation from checking in on the post-game press conference and checking in on the reporters who wrote on it is that there was a lot of complimentary talk about how Riley Leonard bounced back from an early interception, and a lot of complimentary talk about how the defense gave up one explosive play, and once they settled in, they started kicking them in the nuts over and over and over again. Is the sense I got. And that's awesome. That's what you want to do. Well, guess what? Notre Dame plays Navy. We're going to have a lot more attention on Notre Dame coming up ahead of that matchup at MetLife Stadium.
What else we got? We have upon further review on Monday. We can hit extra stuff if you want.
Kansas over Houston is something that I've got to get my eyes on.
Didn't watch that one. Yeah.
I didn't watch that one. But that was a result that caught my attention.
Cincinnati 3-1 in Big 12 play.
Cincinnati 3-1 in Big 12 play. And buddy, I was tracking this one intently.
Same.
And it should not have been as sweaty as it was.
No, it should not have. I'd
Wait,
prefer if it had
the total.
No,
I had Cincinnati minus 4 or 4.5 or whatever.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
And there was like Arizona, because
Very-
Arizona State missed so many field goals in this game that head coach Kenny Dillingham came out afterwards and was like,
field goal tryouts.
We're doing field goal kicker tryouts. And again, Cincinnati minus 4.5. I'm very thankful, because if those field goals that were missed over and over and over again had hit, we would have had ourselves a problem, because Cincinnati also had like multiple turnovers on downs in the red zone or scoring position.
I mean, again, going back to what I said about Sark, I appreciate a coach who's willing to try things. So, like, Dillingham might get whatever for it. Good. If your kicker stinks, open up the avenue. You might have a kicker on campus. It might help you win games. Do it.
Oh, I'm all the way in on BYU having just. How about this? If Miami is 2023 Washington, BYU is 100% 2022 TCU.
Yeah.
Like,
are they more that, or are they okay? Are they more like what Oklahoma State was last year?
No, because Oklahoma State lose a game or two early, and then right. cut it on. I mean, BYU beat SMU.
It's true.
I mean, I just kind of think that I just think they're on one.
They're good. Provo at night.
Rhett's last run, his legs were pretty huge here.
The tackling effort
by
fair. Oklahoma State on that final touchdown. You're either horrible at football or that was suspicious. That's all. Just diving in air and falling to your knees and falling down. Just, I missed. Damn. Just very, very strange to me. That's all I'm going to say. I watched it this morning. I went to bed. I didn't watch the fourth quarter live. I got up. I watched the fourth quarter this morning. Very suspicious.
I'm not going to allege foul play. I'm just going to allege poor play.
Okay. I might rather just be accused of throwing it than saying that's my best effort. Go watch the replays. Tell me those guys were trying to make tackles.
I hear you. Yeah. All right. I think we got it. I think that's as much damage as we can do.
Let's do it.
Okay. Can we talk about Central Michigan? What in the world did the Chips do?
Fired up.
They must have been fired.
Always do. The Chips, let's check right here because I won't pretend I was. Did they beat? No, they lost to Eastern. You don't just step onto the gray turf.
They did blow a pretty good lead.
Hey, real ones know this one. You don't step on Max Crosby's turf like that.
No.
Come on. Max with an extra X spent his hard-earned NFL checks to get you a new turf. Okay?
You don't disrespect it.
Eastern Michigan is going to respect Max with an extra X Crosby. Play hard at home. Let's go. All right, so we are going to be back on Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Come and join us, youtube.com/cover3 with more upon further review, more notes on the week that was. I mean, who knows? There's 127 left in the third quarter. Maybe Utah will come back and beat TCU, which if so, yikes. Frogs, that would not be good. We'll detail that. We'll see. And so much more. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Bud Elliott 3. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
I promise we'll talk about Iowa State on Monday. It was just going on at the same time as Georgia, Texas, so it got a little bit lost in the shuffle.